As you review this PowerPoint from the article by Ferrell-Smith, I want you to remember that although she's talking about school violence, we can extrapolate from that into other types of workplace violence, even bullying at its basic core, bullying at home and schools, all across the board. So just remember that it's not just limited to the schoolyard. Many of the behaviors that you see in this piece will be repeated in other scenarios. Sometimes we forget that bullying isn't just physical. We often think of the schoolyard bully pushing somebody around, trying to get their attention by pulling their hair, pushing them down, kicking them, whatever it might be. But it doesn't always have to be a physical form. It can be done through harassment, intimidation, taunting, and ridicule. What motivates this bullying? Any number of things can motivate bullying. It could just be a whim that you have that particular day, but then you decide that you like it, so you continue to perform the behavior, because bullying is about patterns of behavior, not just one instance. Hate, bias, peer pressure, desire to retaliate, and cultural norms all play a part in motivating bullying. And typically it's because the person believes that he or she can win. Try thinking about power currencies, going back to our RICE acronym. Bullies really believe that they have power. So they want to intentionally injure or harm psychologically, physically, emotionally, mentally. And they want to do it by inflicting discomfort on one or more students or persons. Okay? And so they want to do this because it makes them feel good at some level, and because they know they have that power. But remember, power is given. So if a bully bullies someone, the bullying victim can actually stop the bullying in certain instances by simply denying the person that power. While they can physically fight back, they can also use their words, right, their communication patterns to change the bullying behavior. But clearly it's a perceived imbalance of power. I wouldn't bully someone if I thought that they could beat me up, right? Physical bullying. I wouldn't bully someone mentally if I thought that they could do the same thing back. But it does mean that I believe at some level when I'm a bully that I have a power currency, and that you allow me to have that power currency. As I mentioned, there are different types of bullying, and this particular article really gets at that. Physical bullying can be punching or kicking. I think many of us have experienced this on the playground. We may have even been the ones that have been doing it. But as you begin to get into more adult type settings, typically physical bullying will lessen, largely because of the law, right? You could be charged with assault. But when things happen verbally, emotionally, sexually, or they're hate motivated, it's sometimes hard to stop. And yes, there are some other laws in place, but it doesn't mean the person considers those before engaging in certain types of bullying, especially in the workplace. So a verbal type of bullying involves insults and cruel jokes. And sometimes sarcasm can border on this, because we know that people have been called snarky, and we know that there's a biting element to their sarcasm. So be careful with sarcasm. Make sure that you're using it with people you know and who know you. But not everyone will understand sarcasm and cruel jokes, right? We know that cruel jokes are out there about people and populations. Well, cruel jokes are a type of bullying. They're a way to send a message to people who might be shorter, taller, fatter. So we have to keep those things in mind. Emotionally, we can also bully someone. We can blackmail them If you don't do this, I will put this up on Facebook, especially social media, right? Cyberbullying. We can also try humiliating you in public. For example, if you were on a Zoom call and you were with a group of your colleagues or students, fellow students, on the Zoom meeting at work, and your boss says to you, "Hey, Karen, how come you never change your background? We're always in the same place." That's a form of humiliation, because that person in charge is raising an issue that he or she has with me without actually confronting me or even telling me silently. They do it in public, which is a type of humiliation. There can also be sexual bullying, exhibitionism, people who like to show themselves naked to other people when they have not been asked to do so. Sexual harassment, we know, is very common, both for men to men, women to women, men to women, women to men. It's not, it's not strictly gender-based, right? It happens across relationships. And then it's also hate motivated. This is where hate crimes come in. Sometimes bullying can go into more crimes, but taunting about race, religion, sexual orientation, and more, and maybe even using microaggressions, which is a whole other ball of wax. And if you're interested in microaggressions, you should look up that term and take a look at some of the material that's out there on how we say little things, but they can have big impacts. Think about the chapter on gender, or even the readings on gender that we've had thus far in class. Think about the ways in which men and women express and understand and feel emotions. Think about the ways in which apologies may or may not occur. But gender is an important issue. I know we use male or female here, and that usually refers to sex, so we're looking at the ways in which men and women perform, right, what they consider to be their sex according to cultural norms. So males, tend to want to be more masculine, and men are encouraged to be physically aggressive if they're bullying. To take control of somebody's physical body is a way for them to show strength. We know that this can often lead to crimes later in life as well, so we do want to caution that early on. It doesn't mean men don't participate in other types of bullying, but oftentimes, especially when looking at schoolyard bullying, we see males doing it more physically aggressive. Females, however, so females in this case would be young girls, women who tend to think that they are and identify as female, and therefore they want to perform femininity. Well, the good female in American culture does not usually engage in physical aggression, and there are, of course, exceptions, as there are to anything. Females, however, tend to do relational, indirect, and social aggression. Think about times, for example, when you might have seen it, you might have been the one doing it. You also might have observed siblings, parents doing this, where they talk about people behind their back. They try to separate somebody from the group, typically other women, from the group they're in. Young women, especially in schoolyard settings or in school settings, might be the ones who are actually taking a step aside and letting other people bully for them. In that sense, they're using their allies, their interpersonal connections to try to do that. Maybe they shun somebody in a group, right? Maybe they create a Facebook group, and I know that's old school now, or an Instagram page where they only show pictures of each other, but not that one friend that they want to ostracize. So think about all the ways in which females may, in fact, engage in different types of bullying behavior. While examining this particular slide, I want you to think about the fact that this was data retrieved in 1998. And it was published in 2001, and we are almost 20 years later. So don't just believe that these are the numbers that will continue, but these are the ones that she reports in her article because that's the data that she has. You might, for example, want to see if there are any new findings about belittling, hitting, slapping, being subjects of rumors, subjects of sexual comments, and look at bullying behaviors among U.S. youth, but more recently, right? Take a quick look on Google, see if you can find a good website, okay, or go to the Journal of the American Medical Association and just take a look. See what they're saying currently about the ways in which this is happening. And I'll bet you will also find that people are ridiculed for their political beliefs, as that is kind of the environment we live in as well. The links between bullying and school violence are quite interesting. As you look into the history or hear about or reflect upon many of the mass school shootings, unfortunately, that you've had to live through or may have even experienced directly, you know that many times that the person who is doing this act of school violence where it's gone from I've been bullied, therefore I'm responding, is that they don't have the communication skills or the self-esteem or the support system in place to help them work through their responses, reactions to the bullying in any positive ways. But most of those school violence perpetrators are the ones that have felt like they were bullied, like they were threatened, attacked, or injured by others in some other incident. And that can lead to mass school violence, not just one-on-one, but mass, where somebody wants to hurt anybody who is representative of the group or is perceived as taking part in that type of bullying. Then also think about our mental health during this time. We know that when people are bullied, and I know that each of you has probably been bullied or again has bullied, but the person who's being bullied is typically going to have some kind of other physiological response that shows up in different ways or expresses itself in different ways. I might have increased depression, sadness, loneliness. My self-esteem may be quite low. And I may even commit suicide. And that's the worst part about continued bullying, is that people believe that they are not worthy of living, that they'd rather die than experience the pain that they experience every day. So the more that we can stop bullying at all ages, and especially when people are younger, the better our mental health will be, because there are plenty of other ways in which our mental health is tested, especially now that we're in the COVID response in this culture. Also, think about academic achievement. If you're continuously being bullied, you're more likely to drop out than others, to become disinterested, to skip school. So your academic achievement may also decline because you don't feel comfortable in that environment, and the focus isn't on your learning, it's on your feelings, on about what you're experiencing physically, emotionally, mentally, and so on. In the next few slides, you will learn about different circumstances surrounding different incidents and different school expectations. So think about what your school had as a policy. What is St. Rose's policy on bullying, for example? Is that allowed? How is it handled? What are the consequences for engaging in bullying behavior? What resources exist for those who are being bullied? Maybe not physically, but in other ways. So take a look at the next few slides and learn about different school systems and laws. As you continue to read about bullying in different contexts, from cyberbullying to workplace bullying to schoolyard bullying, please remember that what you're reading about that type of bullying can be thought about across those different contexts. And remember that we always have to look at what people are saying and doing. If you think about styles and approaches when thinking about bullying, typically it's dominating. Right? It's the dominating and competing style that people are using when they bully because they want to win and they want to make others not only lose, but maybe even lose their lives. Right? They want to push people's buttons to no end. And some people do this very subtly and repeatedly, and others do it more obviously. Typically, that changes with your maturation rate, any kind of developmental disability you might have, your home, your culture. Many, many factors influence what contributes to bullying. Please be sure that if you are somebody who is engaging in bullying, that you reflect on what it is you're getting out of that bullying. And if you are somebody who is being bullied, think about ways in which you can stop the bullying from happening, that you can take control, that you can now deny that person the opportunity to make you feel as though you're less than a person. Think about your power currencies in that situation. So deny them theirs and assert your own power currencies.